We all like to be rational people. We like to make the decisions that are grounded with reason and that are the best thing that we can give for ourselves. But we can't get past the fact that sometimes we feel negative emotions so strong that they tempt us to take an action based on them. So imagine this, let's say you are in a social situation and someone within that makes you really unhappy and it becomes unbearable to hold inside. Normally what we like to do when we feel these negative emotions in a social situation is that we try to repress them. We feel that it's not the right time, so we say, okay, I'm not gonna let this come to the surface. But when we do that, these emotions just become stronger. And at some point it becomes so bad. Sometimes it comes to very radical things. With this example in mind, it can be that you develop such a hatred towards the other person that you decide, okay, I need to slap this guy or I need to hit this guy. The thoughts are always there. We can't prevent thought because they pop up at random. Based on that, trying to suppress our emotions by ignoring them outright and trying to focus on something that's not our emotions is really not the right way. So the only other option that we have is to give our emotions the space to express themselves without forcing us to dissipate it all at once through some very radical action that we can regret in the future. But here's an issue that I've found. We move through our lives so fast. There's an unimaginable amount of information that we process every day. Then of course we are conditioned to take so many decisions on a daily basis about our life. And if we stop moving, we feel like we're falling behind. So we are tempted to make even more decisions, maybe where it is not necessary. You might be telling yourselves that what I just said has nothing to do with getting on top of your emotions, but if we think about why our emotions go out of control, it is because we want to move ahead of our emotions and take decisions ignoring the issue. So actually, dealing with our emotions in a way where we can dissipate the emotions slowly is through staying still. Have you ever tried to just stop and think about your emotions? Most likely the answer is going to be no, because we often think that we have no time to deal with these emotions, of course because they come up in very untimely situations. Then we figure out that we just have to keep moving on, and then these emotions just become stronger. Of course it is an option to continually fight these emotions as you're moving forward, but can't we make it easier to deal with these emotions if we release the burden of those negative emotions in the first place? So here's what we're gonna do. When you are in a situation where you feel negative emotions and you feel them becoming stronger, it's very important to get yourselves into a position where you can just focus on your internal signals. Here the big question is whether you actually try to distance yourself from the situation that's giving you these emotions, or whether you try to do it on the spot. I don't really know whether there is a way that is more beneficial to us, especially because a lot of people say, okay, if you get negative emotions and you try to distance yourself from the situation that gave it to you, you're just running away from the emotions. You know, people say that, and it's partially true, but when it's about giving yourself space to deal with the emotions that you have constructively, then sometimes it's appropriate to give yourself some physical space to be by yourself. What do we actually think about so that we can let our emotions dissipate by themselves? This idea is based on the fact that when we have negative emotions, they manifest themselves in certain physiological responses. For example, if you are angry, you have a raised heartbeat, your muscles may be tenser, your blood temperature might rise a little bit. For me at least, when I feel negative emotions, my ears become red and really hot, especially when I feel anger. So step one is actually going to be focusing on those physiological responses. Those are very good starting points for exploring why this emotion is coming up. We're not trying to solve climate change or do rocket science when we're trying to figure out our emotions. We just want to pay attention to how they're coming out in our body. Through that, we allow that to continue happening, and through that mechanism, our emotions will keep dissipating until they eventually go away. Well, what I should have mentioned before is that there is actual scientific evidence that when you have an emotional conflict, which is just when you feel negative emotion, you don't have to do anything. There's no solving that you have to do. You just be aware of what's happening in your body when you feel these emotions. This idea comes from the research done about self-control. When we lose control over our emotions, a certain part of our brain called the anterior cingulate cortex shuts off completely. It is suppressed, and hence we lose awareness of our emotions. And that's just a cycle where our emotions get stronger, and then it tempts us to take some action to release the emotion. The anterior cingulate cortex is responsible for monitoring our emotions. When we have negative emotions, this part of our brain holds it in check. It allows this emotion to express itself freely, which is why we have these physiological responses, but in a way where it doesn't get out of hand and drives us to actually do something about it. The way that we use our anterior cingulate cortex is actually focusing on what it ends up doing, which is creating these physiological responses. In the end, we start with our physiological responses, focusing on them, and that's it. Because after that, our emotions dissipate and everything's okay. The last thing that I want to say is that this obviously will take time. Don't expect to be back in 1 minute, because it takes a while for you to really lock in your focus with your emotions. But once you do that, it's almost guaranteed that your emotions will start dissipating. When you feel angry or when you feel negative emotions, there is no issue in feeling that, but of course we need to know how to deal with it in a very safe way. That's why I wanted to introduce the idea of creating a safe space for yourself so that you can focus on your emotions and get them out in the easiest way possible. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give this video a like. If you're new and you think that I am a good YouTuber, then go ahead and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. We are really close to 300 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate it. If you have any feedback, of course, go and write that in the comments. Share this video if you think other people would benefit from it. And until the next video, take care, stay safe, because you deserve it, and I'll see you later. Cheers.